Good evening, everyone. First and foremost, we are going to look into a term called as MTP. Okay, MTP means Medical Termination of Pregnancy. In simple terms, if we have to say this particular words, then I think you all have heard about abortion. Am I right? Abortion. This simple term called as abortion, in scientific language, we call it as medical termination. Termination means finishing, to terminate, to end it. Pregnancy termination. Okay. Now, why medical? Why? What do you feel? Is MTP, this abortion, is it important? Yes, right? Of course, it's important, and I think you all have seen that there is also an act, MTP Act, which was initiated in the year 1971. There are different types of people who sometimes, for different kinds of reasons, they have to face pregnancy, isn't it? Sometimes maybe if you see, maybe some rape cases also leads to pregnancy, unwanted pregnancies, and sometimes for not taking proper precautionary measures as well, some kind of pregnancies are being experienced. So pregnancy is a thing which is dependent on based on the person, whether the person wants to raise a child or not, isn't it? So I'm showing you the cases. One is the unsafe intercourse or rapes, or another very important thing. Sometimes some couples, they definitely want to give baby, okay, they want to raise the baby, but the problem is that when the doctor is checking during an ultrasound, okay, during an ultrasound, the doctor might face or might feel that, okay, this pregnancy could result into problem of the baby if the baby is rising, if taken care of, if the baby is allowed to grow, then it could be fatal, the baby could die, there could, or during delivery, sometimes I think you all have seen, it can lead to the death of the baby as well as sometimes the mother as well. So when these kind of complications comes, right, during that case, the doctors definitely suggest the mothers or the couples that no, it's not good for rising more and more of the baby, better you need to abort. So these are some of the important phenomenon for which MTP is present. The law related to MTP is present in our country. Am I clear? I think this is something every one of us knows. Right now, why this is in current affairs? It's very unfortunate to say this was in the news because a 10-year-old girl was being raped by her own father, okay, which led to unwanted pregnancy, right? So she was not knowing what had happened, and then gradually she was having certain kinds of pain, and then the doctor confirmed that she is pregnant. Then gradually then cases were being lodged, then finally it was found that it's none other than her father who raped her, and then this is why this kind of things keeps on happening. Okay, and I think you all have heard about Zika virus, isn't it? Zika virus. So when this Zika virus was very much there in news, when it emerged in news very much, okay, this Zika also, in Africa, there were cases in which all the pregnant women were being asked to abort their child as well. So these kinds of situations were there. All right, okay. Moving on to the next, Corvovax. So now why again Corvovax is in news? You can see because it has got its approval for its use for the children in our country. Corvovax, in our country we call it as Corvovax, but in outside it's also the Novavax or the Novovax. Okay, so basically it's a subunit COVID-19 vaccine. Do you remember what is the meaning of subunit vaccine? Or when we talk about this genetic engineering or biotechnology, I think you remember about the agents that we have discussed. Agents or carriers. And this thing in biotech or genetic engineering, we term it as vector. And if you remember, vectors, basically it comprises of virus or plasmid of the bacteria. Apart from virus and plasmid, we have bacterial artificial chromosome or yeast artificial chromosome, isn't it? So these are different types of vectors that are being used in the biotechnology. Preparation of vaccine is also a kind of biotechnology where we are taking out a unit. So anyway, here this has been done with the help of engineered baculovirus, the SARS-CoV-2 gene. Okay, the vaccine, of course, since we are making a COVID-19 vaccine, that unit, since we have called it as a unit, subunit of the SARS-CoV-2, that's the spike protein, we have inserted it into a genetically modified baculovirus, and these baculovirus is used as a vector in the laboratory process. Now the thing is that another important advantage of uses of baculovirus is that this baculovirus, this particular virus, I think we have heard about so many diseases, human related diseases or animal related diseases that are caused by virus. But have you heard that some diseases are caused by baculovirus? No, right? We haven't heard it much. Why? Because this baculovirus, it infects the invertebrates. Remember, so vertebrates and invertebrates. We are what? We are vertebrates. We have our vertebral column. We have our spinal cord. We are vertebrates. And there are, you can see, there are some organisms which do not have the vertebrate column. So those are called as invertebrates. And therefore, we do not have to worry if anyhow, if baculovirus is being given to us. Why? Because they will not infect us. Have you understood? Yes, very good. If you think about this Covishield, we use the adenovirus, isn't it? The adenovirus is used in Covishield for the transferring of the spike protein of the SARS-CoV-2. Now, when it's a subunit vaccine, one thing you should remember, a subunit. Basically, if this is the virus, SARS-CoV-2N or the coronavirus, and here, this is what? This is the spike protein, right? Why spike protein is so important? Spike protein is important because I have told you multiple times, this is the main part which will attach to the body of the host. Am I right? Do you remember? It will attach to the host body. We have in our host body, we have receptor called as ACE2 receptor, in which the S protein will bind it, and therefore we get infected, right? Now for making this subunit vaccine, subunit vaccines can be anything. It could be a protein subunit vaccine. It could be a polysaccharide subunit vaccine, but in case of SARS-CoV-2, since S protein is the main agent for attacking us, so we are taking the S protein, we are taking this subunit, right? But when you take only this part, if you take out only the subunit, only the spike protein alone will not give you much kind of immunity. Right? All right, if you inject only the spike protein into the body of the human body, okay, it will understand that something is different, something foreign has come into our body, but not much immune response, not much antibodies will be produced. Therefore, what it is done, it is mixed with certain chemicals to give stronger response, and these kinds of chemicals with which the subunit is being mixed, those are called as adjuvants. So is it clear? Have you understood what is the meaning of adjuvants? They are some kind of chemicals. And for Corvovax, we have used, that means not we, the scientists have used saponin based adjuvant. Saponin, what is saponin? Saponin is a toxin that is present in soaps. You can find in detergents, Okay, soap, saponin, right? So that is being used, and with the help of that adjuvant we have initiated and we have made the vaccine called as Corvovax. Okay, now if you see what kind of vaccines in India, if you say the first and foremost, the Covaxin came into for the mass use. Then gradually what came? The Covishield came, isn't it? The Covishield came, and if you say Covishield has been used by the majority, the Covishield has been administered to the majority of the Indian population, right? Then third, lots of vaccines came, right? Lots of vaccines came. Sputnik came, but Sputnik and all the other vaccines, although they came, but they were not being applied much. So Covaxin, Covishield, and if you remember recently in March, another vaccine has been given to the small children. They have directly been administered. Do you know what is the name? It has been in news. Have you seen this? From 16th of March, there was a news. Corbevax has been administered for the children who have reached the age of 12 years. So, Corbevax, right? So you can see for the people 12 to 14 age group, that means born from this age range from March 16. Again, just like Corvovax, Corbevax is also a protein subunit vaccine. Same thing, protein subunit vaccine. That means we are utilizing the spike protein, right? We have utilized this spike protein. These are something we all know who has developed, who has done all this biological E-limited, those things. You can read it yourself. But one thing, virus. If you want to culture virus in lab, is it possible without a host? No, right? Because we all know virus is something in between living as well as non-living. This virus, when it's inside a living body, right? It's inside a living body, it will act like living. But when it's outside, it will act like chemical, right? Crystal kind of thing. This is the this is the behavior of virus. Now therefore, if you want to make vaccine, you will have to culture it. Now when you are culturing it, this culture of this Corbevax is done in the East Pischia pastores. Please remember this. In what organism this Corbevax, this virus SARS-CoV-2, and for making of Corbevax has been done? It has been done in the East. Okay, now coming to the subunit vaccine. Overall, whether it's Corbevax, whether it's Corvovax, when we call about subunit vaccine, this is the SARS-CoV-2, right? And in the SARS-CoV-2, all this thorny, spiky-like structures are called as spike protein, right? We will take out the spike protein, right? Next, as you take out the spike protein, that spike protein, we will mix it with adjuvant, isn't it? And then finally, it will result into the formation of vaccines, right? Please remember this diagram. If you remember this diagram, this will be very much helpful for remembering the concept of your subunit vaccine.